True crime is our passion, but let's face it, it can get heavy. That's why we created Monthly Mood, a space to lighten the mood and lessen the load. Once a month, we invite you to step away from the doom and gloom and join us for something a little different. From intriguing oddities and entertaining tangents to thought-provoking topics that inform and inspire, Monthly Mood is your true crime palate cleanser, because even the most dedicated detectives need a mental refresh.
Across Pennsylvania, a quiet war is unfolding. A tug-of-war, if you will, between local townships and the nearly 50 proposed data centers slated across the state as of December 2025. And that number only reflects what's been publicly disclosed. With massive companies betting big on Pennsylvania's digital and energy future, this conflict isn't going anywhere anytime soon. When we hear about data centers, the pitch is always the same: enhanced security, dependable data storage, economic boosts, infrastructure upgrades, and revitalized sites. All good things on the surface. But what aren't we being told? What's hiding in the fine print? And do the benefits truly outweigh the consequences? Join us as we begin to peel back the layers and deep dive into the real impact of data centers across Pennsylvania. So, good afternoon. My name's Chelsea, and today I'm joined with Shannon. How are you doing today?
I am good. I'm getting through that, monstrosity project that I had told you about at work. It's almost completely done. It will free my days up. I'm so excited. I'm feeling pretty rejuvenated right now. So if I sound a little bit manic, excuse me.
It looks so beautiful outside, but we're getting over being sick, and the only thing I hope for is that it's warm enough to clear up some of the snow, because I'm sick of looking at it.
Yeah, we were just out for a couple hours, and so was like half of Chester County, I swear. And it's really nice out, but like everybody's out on the road. Like we waited a half hour in Starbucks just for drinks. It was so
Dang,
crazy.
that's wild.
Yeah. And then it's I would say it's melting a little bit. It's not, making a lot of significant progress, but the stuff that was frozen that my car door was hitting actually gave way. So I was able to like kick some of it away. So there's some
Progress
progress.
then. Yes. Well, I guess it's good that we're homebound if everyone's out itching to be out of the house.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go over some housekeeping as usual. I want to give a shout out to two of our Patreon members that have been with us for a while, Heather R. and Carrie O. You guys are amazing. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at KCC Pod, or on Facebook and YouTube at Keystone Cold Cases. We are releasing current episodes now on YouTube every Friday afternoon, and we are in the process of releasing our older episodes. Don't forget to like or subscribe to all of our social media pages. We love hearing your thoughts on each case, so don't be shy. Drop a comment, send us a message at keystonecoldcases@gmail.com, or share the episode with a friend who loves true crime as much as you do. Your engagement really helps us grow and reach more listeners. A quick reminder that we do our best to research every case thoroughly and share our sources at kccpod.com. That being said, we can't take responsibility for any errors or inaccuracies in the original materials we reference. So, as I said before, we're going to be talking about Pennsylvania and the data centers that everyone is literally seeing get proposed near them. Let's start with a bit of history on data centers. Fun fact, the first true quote-unquote data center was at the University of Pennsylvania in 1945, housing the massive computer ENIAC. It required multiple rooms, enormous power, and extensive cooling systems just to keep it running. Over the next few decades, the transistor revolution changed everything. Invented in 1947 by Joe Bardeen, Walter Brayton, and William Shockley, at Bell Labs, the transistor eventually earned the trio a Nobel Prize in 1956. Over time, transistors evolved from germanium to silicon and were incorporated together into integrated circuits and shrunk in size. These chips paved the way for personal computers. As PCs became more popular, new challenges arose, like heat management and accessibility, which eventually led to the birth of the cloud in the 2000s. So, what exactly is the cloud? Instead of buying, installing, and maintaining hardware at home, we're essentially renting computing capacity supported by infrastructure, services, and resources housed at third party data centers. What drove cloud computing was the internet. As internet speeds increased, data could be moved fast and finally got to where you didn't see the difference from running most programs on your computer or running them in a data center across the country.
I don't know about you, and maybe this shows my age, but like I have a real aversion to my personal stuff being in a cloud. I know I can't really get around it, but give me a good old hard drive so I know that my tax returns, my W-2s, I know where they are and who has access to them. And I've recently found that there's only so much cloud storage that you get. And I had to buy some more storage because, of all of the stuff that we do for the podcast, it took a majority of my cloud. So I had to increase the memory on my cloud to continue saving all of the stuff that we need to produce this podcast. But now it is actually inspiring me to like spend some time and go through and clear out my computer of the stuff that I really don't need to save any longer.
There definitely are worries. We see it a lot. I think we probably notice it more for celebrities who get their information stolen from the cloud,
Hmm.
like maybe celebrity pictures or conversations. And it does happen to, everyday people too, but I'm sure you're not seeing it in the news as much. But
Right.
it does pose real serious, concerns, especially when you have these, mega tech companies who can literally stop services on you at any time. I actually, like, before we started recording, was watching, I think it was a TikTok about a documentary how, some countries in the EU are moving away from using things like Teams or Microsoft Office because um, at any time Microsoft can cancel your email or can cancel like
Hmm.
all this stuff and you have no control over it and it's scary. Like you think this stuff is yours, you're using it, and it's really not. It's not yours.
Right.
So, I mean, very important to note that. So, right now we're really facing the rise of AI and the demand for infrastructure has skyrocketed. Advanced cooling, efficient rack solutions, and massive storage are all needed, and that's why we're seeing a surge in data center proposals across the country. And people often point to AI as the sole reason data centers are expanding, but that's really only part of the story. The reality is that multiple forces are driving its growth. We're living in a fully digital age, and entire sectors like transportation, government services, and healthcare have been steadily transitioning their operations online. And they're not the only ones. And at the same time, cloud adoption continues to accelerate with organizations moving data and infrastructure away from on premise systems in favor of scalable, cloud based solutions. And beyond that, consumer expectations have changed. We're a generation that expects everything instantly, right here, right now. With the rollout of 5G delivering faster speeds and lower latency, edge computing has become essential. Data needs to be processed closer to where it's created, and that demand places even more pressure on data center infrastructure. AI may be a headline driver, but it's far from the only one. The biggest reason edge computing is becoming so important comes down to two things: the type of applications we're running today and the massive amount of data being generated. In the past, most applications like payroll systems or tools such as Google Workspace didn't require instant processing. A slight delay didn't really matter. But today's technology is different. Self driving cars, for example, rely on sensor data that has to be processed in milliseconds. Security systems may have a dozen 4K cameras constantly streaming footage. That's an enormous amount of data, and sending all of it to a centralized cloud for processing simply isn't fast or efficient enough. Edge computing solves that problem by processing data closer to where it's created. It also adds reliability. If there's an internet outage, devices can continue operating locally instead of shutting down. Think about a smart thermostat maintaining temperature settings or an industrial robot continuing production on a factory floor. That ability to operate independently can make all the difference.
This information just is justifying my desire to get rid of my smartphone and just go back to like the basic flip phone.
It's hard. I mean, we have a generation that's, powered on technology, and there's a statistic that, in 2026 we'll be using 22% more than we did last year. We just rely so heavily, and it's not just us as people, but businesses, companies, healthcare, like all this stuff. It's kind of the way of, like, I guess, evolution and moving technology.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think
No.
this is a huge reality.
Doomed to increase. I honestly get excited when I get the weekly usage on my phone and it tells me I used less than the week before. I'm like, all right.
Sometimes I question it because some days it's like, you spent 18 hours. How is that possible?
I know, right?
I worked a full day. I did all this. Like, what? It is not true.
I know.
I don't know. But I do use my phone quite a lot. I rely heavily on my phone for multiple different reasons.
Yeah.
So, we talked about this. It's clear we need solutions to be able to expand in this technological age. So, why are data centers bad? Why should we take pause and really consider, is this really what we want in our backyard? I'm going to talk about a couple of them. And the first one's power supply. And now this is my bread and butter. I work in the power industry, and honestly, for me, it was my first red flag. My first set of questions come from this, I guess, little section that we're going to talk about. So, we live in southeastern Pennsylvania, and our electrical grid is already overwhelmed. It has been for years. We've come dangerously close to rolling blackouts, something we've managed to avoid so far, but other states haven't been so lucky. Blackouts happen for plenty of reasons: extreme weather, surging demand, aging infrastructure, and now we want to drop energy-hungry data centers into the mix. Doesn't make sense. So, data centers require an enormous, I can't even tell you, an enormous amount of power. A single facility can draw more electricity than an entire small town. So the question becomes, how are we powering it? And the answer isn't simple. These facilities need high voltage transmission lines feeding mini substations, usually built right on the data center campus. Transmission lines don't just magically appear. They're expensive as hell, and they need somewhere to go.
And if I'm getting ahead here, let me know. But knowing that our electrical grid is as taxed as it is now, like, what is the plan to meet this need if they get the approvals to put the data center, for instance, on the Penhurst property?
So we will talk a little bit more about it a little bit later, but that is a valid question. It's something that, our lawmakers, even our governor, is asking. And to take some of these developers seriously, they need to have a plan in place to figure out how they're getting the power to them, because they can have a substation be built on the property. That's great. Good for you. Where's the power coming from?
Right.
They need to have a clear, concise plan. They most likely are going to have to work out deals with power companies. So around us, you're looking at Pico, and there's a couple things they can do. They can shift loads, but regardless, they're going to have to get from a transmission line to the actual data center, because nothing currently exists, right? And these are expensive. And I work in this. you have to have companies, you have to have an engineer of choice, you have to then have a contractor of choice. A lot of this stuff has a lot of backload on it. Ever since COVID, ordering supplies for power distribution has been ridiculous. I mean, we're seeing weeks, months, some things you can no longer order. And other things, impact that. And not to be political, because I don't want to, not at all, but at some point, there was a plant that was rated for the workers. We had employees over from another country at a plant working, and they were here to train citizens, which is fine, But then someone called ICE, and it really kind of tarnished them. And that plant, it was for cars. So why would that affect power distribution, may you ask? Well, that same company, they also build transformers, and there's not a lot of companies that do. And it really raised a question, is this going to impact the relationship? Is this going to impact what little inventory we already have, basically? Mm-hmm. And, it is a valid question. And with all the politics going on, we getting some electricity from Canada who said they're going to stop sending it, that is other variables that will also feed into the mix. Because we do not make our own, we do not generate enough power on our own as a country. We just don't.
No. And we've been hearing about this for years, especially with the rise in EVs, and how, yes, they are draining the power grid as well, especially if certain states are putting mandates in for increase in EVs, then it's great, you're going to reduce emissions, but you still got the power grid to contend with. So it's, yes, I guess it's, which of the lesser of the two evils in that respect.
And with EV, just from being on projects that regard EV, everything is happening so fast. Yeah, it's great. It's a great concept, like you said. And it's like, well, which ones, for better or for worse. But just with how fast that technology is coming, there's so much trial and error, and a lot more error than you would think.
Yeah.
The designing for it, you think the design's going well. Things do not work out. I don't know. I've worked for a handful of companies over the years. I've watched contracts, be snatched back so fast when designs go out, and then like less than a couple months, something heavily goes wrong.
Oh.
It is hard. Everyone's trying to have a piece of this pie, figure out solutions to it. It's hard. I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, we will touch a little bit more about that later as well and go a little bit more in depth on that. So southeastern Pennsylvania is densely populated. I mean, we talk about this in some of our other cases. We're all located in southeastern Pennsylvania, and man, developing. Everywhere you look, if there's space, they want to put something on it. It is just so populated. And it just means the odds are that power companies will be knocking on doors asking for easements. That's what's going to happen. They can't just put up these transmission lines. They got to go somewhere.
Right.
And when they're knocking on your door, the payout might look tempting up front. But easements come with long-term consequences. And I'm going to tell you, just because I know offhand, not all the time it's money. Sometimes they'll do work for you on your house. You can negotiate with them, and it sounds great. It sounds lovely. You think you are making the deal of your life. Right. You're negotiating with them. They're going to do what you say. I mean, to an extent, obviously. Let's be realistic.
Right.
But you think it's the best thing ever, right?
Sure. Somebody do something to my house that I can't or want to do.
Yeah. They come with long-term consequences. They really do. And the biggest one, guarantee a drop in your property value. I mean, I don't want a massive transmission line cutting through my land, and I doubt someone who's going to buy it, they're going to want it either.
Agreed. And This is good information to know because if for some reason like this data center goes through and there's a possibility that they come knocking on my door for an easement, I'm just going to basically sell and get the hell out, before that can even happen. And I live near a Pico substation, like very, very lucky in that respect because I don't have many power outages where I'm at. But I'm wondering if that would be attractive to requesting an easement in like my neighborhood.
So where you live, your substation's like fairly small.
Hmm.
Um, they would probably go from a larger substation
Okay.
to travel to get there, or they tap into an existing transmission line. And they'd probably want to be as close to like the least amount of work as possible. And that's why they can kind of shift lines. Like maybe it's a lower level voltage, they shift it up a little bit and they, take take a percentage of that off to go to the data center. I doubt it would probably come from such a small substation like yours, but um, never say never.
Right.
And there's other things to consider when you have an easement. They have Now they have say on what happens. There's maintenance that happen on them, which means they can come in whenever they want. That is an easement, which means now it's part of their property as well. And you don't always have a say of, how they're getting onto your property. Are they going to be ruining your grass with heavy equipment to get onto your property? Then you have to look at, a lot of people worry about health issues. They believe that with transmission lines, there are consequences health wise. And there is always a hum. The electricity going through, there's a hum. It's nonstop. It doesn't stop. It's 24/7. There's just like a lot of things you should think about, like fires. Transmissions are more likely to have arcs. It's important. Do your due diligence if you get contacted. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
And then the next question is, who's paying for these new transmission lines? Or the upgrades to our already strained infrastructure. I've sat in East Vincent Township meetings where officials swear up and down that the data centers will cover those costs. And I call bullshit.
Yeah, it's covered until it's not covered, and then our taxes are going to go up.
Yeah, but the thing is, and this is a thing that I tell everybody, because they're like, oh, yay, I won't have a data center 5 minutes if we fight this. It doesn't matter. If there's a data center going up along our grid, which is across 13 states, doesn't matter if you're 5 minutes, 5 miles, 5 hours away. If it is on your grid, you will feel that rate increase. Since last year, 2025, we've had a rate increase every 6 months. Every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen electric rates increase. Some locals are paying more for electricity than they are for their own mortgage.
Yeah, this was a big topic in my town's Facebook page earlier this year. We're in the middle of February, but like once January hit and they noticed their bills coming in and they were going up. Some said they were paying like over $700 a month. That just blows my mind. I don't pay that much. I have a smaller house. I've only got like a little rancher, so a lot of LED stuff, but you know, I'm still paying like $300 a month for electricity and gas, give or take.
So I'll be honest, in all the local groups, I mean, a ton of them. 422 sucks. You're from Roarsford, you're from Spring City, Phoenixville area parents, all these groups posting the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I had a bill almost $800. And you want to know why? It wasn't just the rate increase. I switched. So Pico is still my supplier, but you can have other companies that you are going through.
Yes.
I go through Eligo. And the thing is, they're tricky. So I can't, unlike Pico, where they're just going to give me their rates. Eligo, I shop around. They have competitive rates. So it's a little less. They do like different terms, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And the kicker for me is I have Pico for my gas and my electric.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 different contracts. And a lot of the times those contracts don't match up. So through Eligo, I could have a 3-month gas contract and a 6-month electric one.
Oh, gosh.
And yep. And if you don't call to re-up those contracts, you fall to a variable rate, which will rape you left, right, and fucking center.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what happened. I missed calling, and like, even if you call before your contract's up, it doesn't matter. You have to call by a specific date within your contract time, or you fall to variable, and you have to wait that entire month. And I learned my lesson. My grandfather always told me a lesson paid is a lesson gained, which it is. I have not missed it since, and it is slightly cheaper than Pico, but if you're not organized, if you're not on top of it, it is not the way to go. You will pay less through Pico than getting, destroyed. But I have a big house. I have a 4-story house. My basement is unheated. My pipes freeze. I have to keep that bitch over 70 just to make sure my pipes don't freeze. Our bill has been ridiculous. I am probably looking at $1,000 energy bill coming up.
Oh, my goodness. I can't.
That's
crazy.
And like, I'm pretty good about it. We unplug things. We have LED appliances, LED lights. We're pretty good about it. Does not matter.
Yeah.
And the costs aren't going down. They're going up. And meanwhile, data center companies are holding private meetings with the real power players, wholesale energy suppliers, politicians, and local governments. And honestly, I was talking about this with my friend, and he made a really good point. It's cheaper for these companies to make deals because they're buying a huge portion of power compared to having to make deals with a ton of us local residents, It's, kind of like how you go to Costco to shop wholesale in big bulk. And I get it. I do get it that they need like some breaks, but I don't think it's transparent enough for us to see exactly how much they're not paying their due.
Agreed. None of these big corporations are transparent enough if you want the honest truth.
Nope.
They think
and they don't
we're
want to foot the bill. Yep. They don't want to foot the bill. They want you, the average local resident, to absorb the cost and not think anything about it.
And I have to say, like, this area is really good at being very involved and very vocal in, especially like this data center project. Like, I see, even just like the lawn signs, like it's all enough to like make somebody who's unaware of what's going on question it, and then hopefully do the research and kind of get on board to be one of those voices against it.
Yeah, it's wild. And as much as I could talk about the power supply for days on end, we're going to switch and we're going to talk about the water supply, another important utility we need to talk about. So, data centers run 24/7. They don't shut down, they don't sleep, and that constant operation generates an extreme amount of heat. With that heat comes a very real risk of fire, which means these facilities require massive cooling systems just to function safely. Think about your own desktop or laptop. After hours of use, the internal fans kick on to cool it down. Now scale that up, way up. There is no single big fan capable of cooling a data center. Instead, operators rely on industrial solutions, and the most common one is water. Many data centers use evaporative cooling systems that consume staggering amounts of water. According to the Environmental and Energy Study Institute, large data centers can use up to 5 million gallons of water per day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's comparable to the daily water usage of a town with 10 to 50,000 residents. Let that sink in. That is an absurd amount of water every single day.
That just alone should really make people question putting these data centers in residential areas. Like, that's unbelievably irresponsible.
It is. It absolutely is. And the bigger concern is, where is that water coming from? Are these facilities tapping into public water systems? Or are they drilling private wells? That second option should alarm everyone because it directly impacts local aquifers and neighboring water supplies. Just last year, southeastern Pennsylvania experienced a severe drought. Wells dried up across multiple townships, and homeowners waited weeks to have deeper wells drilled just to regain access to water, which we all need.
Right.
We cannot survive without water.
No. Lord.
If a private data center can pay for priority drilling and sink wells deeper than the surrounding community, that's not just unfair, it's dangerous.
This is really... I'm sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is really bringing like these apocalyptic movies to the forefront of my mind. Like when the power grid goes down, when the water supply goes down, like you're just left with people trying to survive. And here are these data centers are like going to tap into those two huge items that regular society is reliant on to function appropriately.
Yeah. And, you know, talking about it, some people are like, oh, you're just kind of being like, I guess the best word to put it is like hysteric or dramatic. And I really want you to think about something or look into something to see the impact of a company using up the water supply around its town. So soybean production for other countries happens in like the western south of the United States. You have other countries owning businesses producing soybeans. Soybeans consume so much water, and you have these farms in very rural areas. It's not like here, not densely populated, and they have private wells, and they drill, and they drill. A lot of residents cannot access clean water. They have to buy bottled water, or they have to have containment tanks put on their home just to have water. And these companies, they do not care. They don't care. And these locals, maybe it's because it's the size or they don't have the access or the funds. They've been trying to fight this battle for a while. And then if you look at existing data centers that do exist, especially in the West, some people say that their water quality has tanked even after they've put filter systems in, whether it's well filtration systems or public like water that they have like a filter at the tap, whatever. Not the same quality, and that is concerning.
Yeah,
very concerning. And obviously this is a huge contentious topic. These developers are aware that this is a huge topic of concern, and some of them have, created like ways or options on how to maybe limit exactly how many gallons. I think they have things called like closed loop systems, which recycle some of the water that it uses. So it cuts down on how many gallons, but it's still a staggering amount of gallons per day. So it's just like, what do we do?
Right.
And then we're going to move to sound. Here in my area, they're proposing 3 data centers just a hop and a skip away from residential neighborhoods. These facilities, which run 24/7, as we already stated, generate significant noise pollution. Essentially a constant low-level hum ranging between 60 to 100 decibels. Now, obviously, inside the facility is way louder than the exterior. Inside, the decibels range up to 100, but on the outside, it maxes out about maybe 80. And that might not sound like much on paper, but over time, it can have serious effects. Sleep disturbances, increased stress and anxiety, even cognitive impairment. And this impact is seen more near residential areas that don't have that typical heavy traffic noise. And Estimates suggest the hum from a data center can be heard up to 3 miles away, which is pretty far.
Yeah.
Again, that depends on the size and the type of data center. So if you are hoping to call the police with a noise complaint, don't count on much help. This kind of constant industrial noise isn't something easily regulated. And with it being placed in such a populated area, you're going to hear it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And like even just sometimes, like if you're like just in your house and you hear a noise that you can't identify, it gets really annoying really fast. And imagine having that noise all the freaking time. I think I
It
I
is.
think I'd lose it. Honestly, I have enough
Yeah.
trouble sleeping. I don't need help from a data center and their shitty hum.
And the thing to think about is like everyone bought their house like wherever these are going to go. Like it's going to directly impact me. Like if there's one
Hmm.
at Penhurst, I like live less than 5 minutes from there. We bought our house not having that noise pollution. How unfair is it to all these people that have to suffer from one thing or another from these data centers? Like, come on.
You'll be praying for the train to go by constantly.
Yeah. But what I can imagine, there's going to be a mass exodus of people leaving if they really are putting in these data centers. That's the only thing I can see.
Yeah.
So let's talk about wildlife. It's not just humans who are impacted by noise pollution, local wildlife suffers as well. Their habitats, already limited, are further encroached upon by these massive facilities. And then there's the light. Data centers are tall structures ranging from 35 feet to 100 feet, and do pay mind, not all data centers are the same. They are different. They have different purposes, so it depends what kind it is. But each one, they come with bright lights that can disrupt the behavior of birds and other flying creatures. Migration routes, foraging habits, mating patterns all can be affected, and collisions become more likely. Aquatic life is at risk too. These facilities rely on huge volumes of water for cooling, and large scale withdrawals can deplete aquifers, which in turn reduces stream flows and harms fish, amphibians, and other organisms dependent on healthy waterways. The environmental impact reaches far beyond just the buildings themselves.
Maybe PETA needs to get involved in some of these.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people that show up at these meetings, and a lot of them do bring up the environmental uh, challenges that they see. And sometimes it feels like it falls on deaf ears. I will not lie.
That doesn't surprise me. Not when people have dollar signs for eyeballs.
Yep. There's a troubling story recently unfolding in Limerick, Pennsylvania. There was a 55-acre part of state game land 234, and this land was designated for hunting and wildlife, but it was approved to be swapped with Limerick Town Center LLC. Under the deal, the state would gain 559 acres across 3 counties, including Delaware County, which currently has no state game lands. On paper, it's a land swap, but the trade feels wildly uneven. The Limerick parcel is slated for warehouses, but many are worried there's something more sinister at play. Major players seem eager to secure a data center near or along the Schuylkill River, and this move has sparked fears about the environmental and community impact of such a development.
So can you explain this to me, because I will plead ignorance? The land swap. This is what I'm thinking, is that this LLC owns land all over, like the 3 counties, and is giving, or is taking this land that's part that state game land in like swapping it for what? Like just
So there's
different sections of land for
yes,
that one big 55-acre parcel. Am I understanding that correctly?
that is accurate.
Okay.
That is accurate. And that is shocking.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here just like running it over in my mind, and I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. A lot of other people feel that way too. So then let's talk about traffic. No, but if you have lived in the area where we're from, and I'm sure you can kind of assume where that's at. But for me, I'll talk about 724. This past year, 724 has been miserable.
Yep.
Between like Pottstown to, I don't know, Phoenixville-ish area.
Mm-hmm.
All of the work. There is a brand new development going up along there. There was underground work being done around Spring City. Traffic was miserable. I mean, crawling. My partner works like 15 minutes from home, taking him over an hour. An hour.
Wow.
Yeah. That traffic is going to be the same with all the construction that's going to take, with all the vehicles coming in and out. It's going to be a nightmare. And I don't have to tell you about that because I'm sure you've hit traffic somewhere along our lovely area.
Oh, yeah. Specifically 724.
Yep. And it's clear our roads are bursting at the seams. Adding more development only makes it worse. And when land is granted for large-scale construction, it's going to spike our traffic. It's inevitable. And at a recent board meeting, someone asked if there was going to be a traffic study done to see who would be most impacted. And the response, you wouldn't believe it. They were only looking at a half a mile around the site. Half a mile. And the thing is, that completely ignores all the major intersections leading into Pennhurst, which are at least a mile away. And people live there. It affects them.
Yeah. Pennsylvania is awful at taking care of its roads and making them worthy for vehicles. And then you add in all the plowing and the salt over the past month, and you have new potholes that remain unattended. But yeah, let's add all of this construction equipment and additional traffic, not just the residents, but all of this construction traffic that's going to be coming through if these things pass. Like, it's just disgusting.
It is. And the residents at Pennhurst already are complaining that construction companies ignore noise ordinances.
Oh, yeah.
So who will regulate that? Like, who's going to do that?
Nobody.
Yeah. And, like, it's just so damn concerning. Nope. Concerning. That's not a word. Concerning. The proposed Pennhurst location sits just outside Spring City Borough, and is technically not within Spring City Borough. It's within
East Vincent?
East Vincent. Yep, it's within East Vincent. But for Spring City Borough, they only just recently hired a full-time cop. And East Vincent doesn't have a ton of full-time cops themselves. There's just no way, a small fraction of officers can handle daily responsibilities that are going to be mitigated to this data center.
Right.
Or manage the impact of, the massive data center on the community. And I went to one of the meetings and I questioned them on this. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And the board claimed they would require the data center owners to employ at least 2 full-time police officers to help manage traffic, noise, and other community impacts, and kind of be like a liaison, I guess, between the data center and the community, which I really don't feel it's a cop's responsibility. I feel they should hire someone specifically for that.
Yeah.
But I digress.
I agree.
But given what we've seen with massive corporations, there's plenty of reason to doubt they'll actually follow through. And my huge thing was like, you're going to have these 2 cops employed just for the construction. And I was like, what happens to them then? Like, do they just have to find another job? Is this like, what is this? And he was like, this guy that I argued with, who's a real jerk, especially when he talks to women. If you've been to the town hall, if you watched any of the videos, you'll know who I'm talking about.
Oh. Send me links.
Don't get me started. But this guy was like, no, if there's a data center, there'll be 2 police officers at all times. So, I mean, obviously, more to see on that.
Yeah.
The thing is, after all, these companies are raking in billions that they are consistently trying to shift the costs and burdens onto the local community.
Of course.
It's annoying.
Yeah, nobody, they're making the money and they want to keep the money, and to hell with us little peons.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Now, jobs. I always get a chuckle when I see, oh, data center is going to bring so many jobs to our local community. No, it's not. It fucking isn't. It is not. One of, that, and that's the pro-development argument. But here's reality. The majority of these positions aren't going to locals. They're highly specialized roles, often filled by hires brought in from other regions or other countries. Now, okay. You might assume a massive facility would employ hundreds of people. You'd be sorely mistaken. Construction does require large crews. I'll give you that. But construction's only going to last so long, right?
Right.
And it's not guaranteed they're going to pull in local construction companies. There was I didn't know what it was about, but it seemed juicy as fuck, and I wish I knew what they were talking about. But I went to one town hall meeting, and this one, phenomenal woman who I wish to be one day, she was she brought up this fact. She was like, are you going to make sure that they are hiring, local contractors that are licensed? Apparently, the township had brought in a contracting company from another state, and it was a mess. And I couldn't figure out what it was from or anything like that, but other residents seem to know. So I feel like there's more to that story. So if you know, let a girl know.
Yeah.
But it's not guaranteed that they're going to be using local construction companies at all. It's not. They could say they will, but will they?
No, because they're going to go with the lowest bidder.
Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. And once data center's up, how many people do you think it takes to operate a data center? Shannon, you let me know. How many people do you think it takes?
I mean, data center, it sounds like it runs for the most part on its own. It's not, you're not talking about an Amazon warehouse that's fulfilling orders for the masses. This is something that just, is mostly electronic. But I can't imagine that there would be thousands of people employed, because what would they be doing all day? Just sitting there making sure nothing breaks down?
Yep. So it can operate with as few as 8 staff members for a small site, or approximately 45 for some of the larger facilities. 45 people.
Right.
That's not a lot.
Yes, that's not a lot. That does not help the community at all. Even if they said, "Hey, we need 45 people from the local community. We'll hire you." You know what I mean? It's 45 people. It's not. Yep. That's not enough. It's not enough.
And maybe some of that would be security fine. You could probably get local, but a lot of that, those are tech people,
right?
Are we going to get all those from Roarsford, Spring City, Limerick, Linfield, East Coventry?
No.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Probably not. You're the techiest person I know in this area, so.
I think. I try. There is a guy named Jim Grice, and he's a real estate and project finance attorney, and in a article in the Wall Street Journal, he said, quote, "Data centers are very labor intensive to build, not as labor intensive to operate," end quote. So while the promise of jobs sounds appealing, the actual long-term employment impact on local communities, very minimal. That's not even worth a mention as in the pro category, in my opinion.
No.
I think it's...
That was a blowing smoke up butts type of pro.
Yep, exactly. Now, let's talk local. Because data centers are popping up everywhere. It's not just Pennsylvania, though. Pennsylvania is seeing the most input money-wise. But I think all data centers raise concerns. For me, Pennhurst is really adding an additional weight. Why? If you're local, you know what Pennhurst is, and I don't have to really explain it to you. If you're not local, Pennhurst has a dark history as a site where atrocities were committed against individuals in the special needs and mental health community. We covered this in a spooky episode, episode 35. I'm not going to delve too deep into it because it's just so fucking frustrating to talk about for me personally. But it's a raw wound for the community. It might have been decades since that happened, but it's especially raw for those who had relatives suffer in that facility. Many lives were lost, with estimates suggesting the numbers could have been in the thousands. Some residents want the souls of those who suffered to finally rest, while others believe the campus should remain as a stark monument to the human rights violations that occurred there.
I agree. It should be left alone. It needs to be a reminder. It needs to be a reminder that so that stuff doesn't happen again.
Yeah. And honestly, like, come on. And it's literally right by a veteran center. There's so much literal development right around there. There's so many better places for it to be proposed. But
Yeah.
man, they're fighting hard to get a data center there. So, let's talk about fighting back. Now, if you think these projects are being proposed without pushback, you'd be totally wrong. Local residents, municipal leaders, and even the government officials are all trying to figure out how to set boundaries in what really are unprecedented times. When people hear data center, there's often immediate concern. Residents show up to township meetings, they call officials, they organize. But what many don't realize is that municipalities can't always just flat out ban a land use they don't like. From a zoning standpoint, if a use isn't permitted anywhere within a municipality, it can be challenged as exclusionary, and that opens the door to legal battles. Developers know this. They'll either look for gaps in existing ordinances or pursue legal action, and historically, courts often side with developers in these cases.
That blows
That's
my
why
mind.
we're seeing.
I'm sorry, I didn't
It
mean to cut
does.
you off. That blows my
No,
mind.
it's totally fine.
Like, why? Why?
And it's
What reason do you have to side with developers against the people that already make up that community? Like, that is just egregious.
it's horrible. It's terrible. So that's one of the reasons why we're seeing townships take kind of a different approach, and some people are upset about it. But instead of outright prohibiting it, they're creating strict regulations, limiting where development can happen, requiring conditional use approvals, imposing performance standards, adding setbacks, buffering requirements, noise control, the whole list. To some residents, it feels like the township is caving. To others, they see this kind of strategic move, a way to protect the community while staying within the law. So what do you think? Is regulation the smarter path, or should communities fight harder to stop these projects altogether?
I think the community should fight harder. Personally, I think that like projects like this that have really no benefit to the community, it's almost the community's responsibility to push back on it.
Yeah. And it's hard. I will be 100% honest with you. I'll give you my opinion in case you were unable to tell what it is. I think data centers are inevitable. I think they're going to happen. I think the way that we're moving, it's going to happen. Though I do think there are better places for them to be. Problem is, it will cost developers more money, and that's not what they want.
Right.
They want the cheapest option available. And we're going to set some references. Obviously, I'm referencing the hell out of a lot of this. You can go on and see how many proposals there are in Pennsylvania and see exactly where they are. And if you look at them, a lot of them, they're all in the same places. They want them to be, strategically placed, and they're just better places for them.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I'm only aware of the Limerick one locally. I know there's one out, a friend of mine lives out like the Bloomsburg area. I think there's one, they're trying to put one out that way. as well. So they're really the only two that I'm familiar with, but I definitely want to go check out and see where else these proposals are coming through. And I think that's part of the reason, like the Penhurst property, like I've never been to Penhurst, like I've never gone to the haunted house or whatever. I think I went out there to drop my son off once because his girlfriend worked at the his girlfriend at the time worked at the haunted house and he went out to kind of hang out or whatever. But like that's really all I've been. And but it's still just I know, know the history. So it resonates with me in a more personal level than some of the others might, but I don't want to see that one go through like at
Yeah.
all.
Well, there are three like super local. So you have the one at Penhurst, you have the one across from the outlets, and then there is another one in Limerick. Then I know of three near Conchie, right
Jeez.
around Conchie.
Really?
I believe, yeah.
Conchi's
Mm-hmm.
like so busy, it
Yeah.
seems. I didn't think there was any
Yeah.
land for those.
So, I mean, I would definitely take a look. And sometimes some people are just so engrossed with their lives. I get it.
Yeah.
We're busy people. But a lot of people are like, oh my God, I didn't even know about that meeting. I didn't even know they were going to put a data center in there. That's what they want. They don't want you to know.
Yeah.
They don't want you to fight it. Please pay attention.
Yes.
Just do your due diligence. Because then you have no room to complain when they're in. If you didn't fight for it before, you can't really have a say with it after.
Right.
That's how I feel. So, at the beginning of February, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro rolled out a new initiative called GRID, GRID, which stands for the Governor's Responsible Infrastructure Development Standards. Shapiro has been clear that Pennsylvania is, quote, all in on AI, end quote. But it's also obvious he's feeling the pushback from his constituents. During the GRID announcement, he emphasized that the state will take a more deliberate, thoughtful approach to future development, and the framework is built on 4 core principles. So, 1. Protecting energy and water resources. Developers must bring their own power generation online or fully fund a new generation to meet project demands, all without driving up energy costs for residents or businesses. Projects also need to meet the highest environmental standards, including strict water conservation requirements. 2. Transparency and community engagement. Local communities must know who is developing a project, what exactly is being built, and how it could impact the municipality before any construction begins. Developers are expected to engage openly with residents and elected officials throughout the process. 3. Delivering local jobs and community benefits. Projects should prioritize hiring and training local workers and including meaningful community benefit agreements, supporting schools, infrastructure, and long-term economic development. 4. Responsible growth with accountability. Only projects that meet GRID standards will receive the state's full support, including streamlined permitting and access to incentives. This reinforces the administration's focus on responsible, values-driven development. GRID is Pennsylvania's way of saying yes to innovation, but not at the expense of communities or the environment. And that all sounds great on paper. But here's the question. Who's actually enforcing these 4 core pillars? Who's holding developers accountable once the projects are up and running? We've seen it time and time again. Companies promise the world during planning, then drop the ball once construction is complete. The result? Environmental issues, community impacts, and no one stepping up to enforce the rules. And if these proposed data centers don't comply with GRID, what's the disciplinary action? Why isn't that spelled out clearly? There needs to be transparency on the consequences. Not only should tax incentives be at risk, but perhaps the pace of data center growth should be slowed until compliance is guaranteed. Accountability isn't optional, it's essential.
I couldn't agree more.
And with that, ends my TED Talk. I hope you all enjoyed.
Bye.
That's all we have for this episode of KCC's Monthly Mood. Thank you so much for listening, and please consider leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to find out more about the podcast, the host, and the cases we cover, or if you want to suggest a case, please visit us at kccpod.com or send us an email at keystonecoldcases@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook at Keystone Cold Cases and on Instagram and TikTok at KCCPod. Follow us on YouTube at Keystone Cold Cases. Please remember never to reach out to family or friends of the victims. Only do law enforcement if you have any tips. This episode was researched and hosted by me, Chelsea. Find all of our sources, social info, and contact information at kccpod.com. Theme music by Jamie Briggs and production assistance from Shannon Bickle. Join us again next week for another case to sleuth out to.